a special form of request for payment of United States savings and retirement securities where use of a detached request is authorized. This is FS Form 1522. Important. Follow instructions in filling out this form. Making any false, fictitious, or fraudulent claim or statement to the United States is a crime and may be prosecuted. Print in ink or type all information. You know, one of the things that we found is that the people in the back office, and these folks are in the back office, they love to see handwriting because it proves that there is somebody with a pen who is 100% available and response able to handle the business at hand. Okay. 1, description of bonds. I am the owner or person entitled to payment of the securities described below, which bear the names of, this would be the all capital letter name, or whatever the bond has on its surface as the name. So it could be your first last, your first middle initial last, could be your full first middle last all caps name. Just make it coincide with what is on the presentment or bond. You've got 30 slots here to fill. Issue date and serial number. So I would look on that bond and find the issue date. And frankly, if you've got any type of financial statement, they're going to show you when the account was opened, right? That would be your issue date. And then the serial number, it's my knowledge, would be the account number. But when you have a bond or coupon or statement, that information is inherently there. Okay. If you need more space, attach either a list or FS Form 3500. I didn't see this the other day. But, oh, there it is. Look at that little gem. Number 2, instructions for direct deposit payment. That seems very important. The payee must provide a Social Security number or employer identification number. Social Security number of payee or employer identification number of payee. So let's say you've got an LLC or a sole prop or something out there that's an EIN that you do business through, and you're paying certain statements, i.e. bonds. You could definitely use this for that same thing for entity. The name or names on the account. Bank routing number, 9 digits, by the way, all bank routing numbers, even through your, just to give you a little background. So I was a senior vice president, financial consultant with TD Ameritrade Schwab. I started my career with TD Ameritrade, Legacy Green, go all the way. I started as a frontline broker. So I was completing, anywhere between 150 to 250 trades on the market as a stockbroker for our clientele at TD Ameritrade. And at the time, we were the highest volume by far. You could add numbers 2 through 6 in the brokerage firm and still not to get to the daily volume that we were doing trading on the market for our clients. And that's how I started my career. So all routing numbers, 9 digits. Depositor's account number. This is where you would look on your check stub. The second series underneath the Micker line should be the account number. Put your account number there and the type of account, whether it's a savings account or checking. Then you put your financial institution's name, i.e. the name of the bank, the name of the brokerage firm, etc., and their phone number. And this is going to be their back office number, okay? Page 2. 3, signature. I prefer autograph, but we'll call it signature. Under penalties of perjury, I certify that 1. The number shown on this form is my correct taxpayer identification number, or I am waiting for a number to be issued to me. And 2, I am not subject to backup withholding because A, I am exempt from backup withholding, or B, I have not been notified by the Internal Revenue Service, IRS, that I am subject to backup withholding as a result of a failure to report all interest or dividends. Or C, and by the way, we fall into that category, folks, because we haven't been reported to by the financial institution that are keeping the records. C, the IRS has notified me that I'm no longer subject to backup withholding. And 3, I am a U.S. person, which is different than citizen, I might add, including a U.S. resident alien. If you were born here, you're an alien to everything that they do. You're technically an American national. Note, you must cross out item 2 above if you have been notified by the IRS that you are currently subject to backup withholding because you have failed to report all interest and dividends on your tax return. Certification. If the current redemption value, see instructions, and we're going to get to those instructions very soon here because they're beautiful. If the current redemption value of your bonds totals $1,000 or less, your signature need not be certified. You may simply sign the form and enclose a current copy of your driver's license, passport, state ID, or military ID. If the current redemption value of your bonds totals more than $1,000, sign this form in the presence of a notary or certifying officer. Just a quick note on a notary. What is a notary? That is a member of the de jure government of that particular state. They are a judge. It is a judgment. See the importance? Fun. Complete in ink, if required. See certification above. Sign in the presence of a notary or certifying officer. There you've got your form. Sign right there in the witness of a notary public. Print your address, social security number, date, time, phone number, and email address. Now, this is for if, say, like in my instance, I've got a car note that's in both me and my wife Jane's name. So I would have her information here as well, because believe me, that is a pooled investment from both of our Social Security accounts. Okay. So you would have the second signer sign here. And here is where your notary is going to sign instructions to notary or certifying officer. Names of the persons who appeared and date of appearance must be completed. 2, if a medallion stamp is used, an original signature is required. Persons must be in your presence. And let me clarify what that medallion stamp is for. A medallion stamp is simply the verification of the signature that you are who you say you are. Okay? That's all it signifies. And when the bank or brokerage firm or whoever is doing the medallion stamp, they guarantee your signature up to the amount of what the medallion stamp color is. And there is a different value for each stamp that they give you. The good one is the gold one, and that's up to $10 million, okay? Just a little background information. You may leave this blank if your bonds are worth $1,000 or less, and you enclose an ID named above in certification. See, this is real simple, folks. Good stuff. Now let's get to the instructions. Use of form. Use this form to request payment of United States savings bonds, savings notes. Note. Look up the definition of note, and believe me, we're going to have some fun with that. Retirement plan bonds and individual retirement bonds. Who may complete? This form may be completed by the owner, co-owner, surviving beneficiary. I would like to say benefactor because it has a higher status and standing as the true owner of the trust rather than beneficiary, because a beneficiary is legally incompetent, or legal representative of the estate of a deceased or incompetent owner. Kimmery always talks about the blue card person. Well, the blue card person is simply that, a person which is a name on a sheet of paper. And guess what? They can't sign for themselves. They have no ability to do so because it's just a name on a piece of paper. Persons entitled to the estate of a deceased registrant or such other persons who may be entitled, the document holder, to payment under the regulations governing United States savings bonds. A minor, which they consider you all to be, unless you've changed your status and standing, a minor may sign this form if, in the option of the notary or certifying officer, he or she is of sufficient competency to understand the nature of the transaction. An incompetent person may not sign this form. Completion of form. Print clearly in ink or type all information requested. That's very simple. Item 1, description of bonds. Provide the names of the persons shown on the inscription of the bonds for which payment is requested. Describe the bonds by issue date and serial number, which we've already covered. Item 2, instructions for direct deposit payment. The payee's taxpayer identification number must be provided. Furnish the Social Security number if the payee is an individual. If an estate, trust, or other entity is involved, and IRS has assigned an employer identification number, provide that number. Furnish the names on the account number, the type of account. Do you see where the transition just happened here, folks? I thought we were talking about bonds. Furnish the names on the account number, the type of account, in the financial institution's name. The routing transit number, which identifies the institution and the institution's phone number. You may need to contact the financial institution to obtain the routing number. And I'm going to verify and codify everything that we're talking about in bonds, accounts, whatever. But this is just for your payment. They want you to provide where the money needs to go, right? Please verify the account information for accuracy and legibility to avoid any delay in deposit. And I love this term, deposit. For your own study, folks. Item 3, signature. The persons requesting payment of the bonds must sign the form in ink, print his or her name, and provide his or her address, daytime telephone number, and if applicable, email address. If the name of a person requesting payment has been changed by marriage or in any other legal manner from the name in the inscription of the bonds, the signature to the request for payment must show both names and in the manner in which the change was made. For example, Miss Mary T. Jones, now by marriage, Miss Mary T. Smith. It's simple. It's great. Awesome. Certification. To find the current redemption value of savings bonds of Series EE, Series E, Series I, or of savings notes. A note is an obligation. Who covers all notes? United States. It's huge. Use the savings bond calculator at treasurydirect.gov. Well, I'm sick and tired of doing trustee work, so I'm going to let them do that. Okay? If the current redemption value of your bonds totals $1,000 or less, your signature need not be certified. We get this again. Rather, when you sign the form, you may verify and identify by enclosing a current copy of your driver's license, passport, state ID, or military ID. For you state nationals, those who have gotten their state national passport, typically they're issued with a card, a passport card. You could use that as well. I might use my Quick. I'm not sure. If the current redemption value of your bonds totals more than $1,000, each person whose signature is required must appear before and establish identification to the satisfaction of a notary or authorized certifying officer. The signatures to the form must be signed in the presence of a notary or officer. The notary or certifying officer must affix their seal or stamp, which is used when certifying requests for payment. Authorized certifying officers are available at financial institutions. Josh told us the bank told us that the fiscal services officer said, yeah, get it notarized at the bank. Okay. Including credit unions in the United States. Examples of acceptable seals and stamps: the seal or stamp of a notary, a financial institution's official seal or stamp, including signature guaranteed seal or stamp. That's what we used at the brokerage. Endorsement guaranteed seal or stamp, corporate seal or stamp. A corporate resolution isn't required. Or issuing a payment agent seal or stamp, including name, location, and 4-digit identification number or 9-digit routing number. A lot of banks have that. The seal or stamp of Treasury recognized signature guarantee programs or other Treasury approved medallion programs. Where to send? Unless otherwise instructed, send this form and the bonds, as well as any other appropriate forms. I'm probably going to send statements along with them showing the payments that I've made because I want to be reimbursed for those too, as evidence or identification records to the address listed below. Legal evidence or documentation you submit cannot be returned. So what I would suggest is just making a copy of it and putting in red certified copy, right? Treasury Retail Securities Services, P.O. Box 9150, Minneapolis, Minnesota, 55480-9150. There's the toll-free number that Josh called. Notice under the Privacy and Paperwork Reduction Acts. Now, this is where it gets good. The collection of the information you are requested to provide in this form is authorized by 31 U.S.C. Chapter 31. That is a place where you should pull up on your computers that act. relating to the public debt of the United States. Oh, I wonder what it says in there. The furnishing of a Social Security number, if requested, is also required by Section 6109 of the Internal Revenue Code, which is 26 USC 6109. The purpose of requesting the information is to enable the Bureau of Fiscal Services and its agents to issue securities, process transactions, make payments, identify owners and their accounts, and provide reports to the Internal Revenue Service. Furnishing the information is voluntary. However, without the information, the Fiscal Service may be unable to process transactions. Information concerning securities holdings and transactions is considered confidential under Treasury Regulations 31 CFR Part 323 and the Privacy Act. This information may be disclosed to a law enforcement agency for investigation purposes, courts and counsel for litigation purposes, other entitled to distribution or payment, agents and contractors to administer the public debt. I'll read that again. Agents and contractors to administer the public debt, agencies or entities for debt collection or to obtain current addresses for payment, agencies through approved computer matches, congressional offices in response to an inquiry by the individual to whom the record pertains, as otherwise authorized by law or regulation. We estimate it will take you about 15 minutes to complete this form. However, you are not required to provide information requested unless a valid OMB control number, which is at the top of the form, is displayed on the form. Any comments or suggestions regarding this form should be sent to the Bureau of Fiscal Services, Forms Management Officer, Parkersburg, West Virginia, 26106-1328. Do not send completed form to the above address. Send to the address shown in Where to Send above. Wow, that's enlightening, kids. Now, here's another thing. So when Josh got done with his field trip, he was actually on his way to my house. What he didn't tell you is he called me when he stepped out into the lobby. He said, "Man, I'm getting cock blocked here. I'm getting pissed." I said, No. Just continue what you're doing. And I figured I'd see him at the house in about 15 minutes. Well, like 45 minutes go by. I'm like, where's Josh? I wonder. Well, he called and told me exactly what happened to him, that he wonderfully regaled you all with. But later that afternoon, I got together with what I would call some other heavy hitters that I like to, preview and purview information with, just to verify the information. And we had a Zoom call that afternoon. And of course, one of my researchers is always about looking up exactly what they're talking about. Title 31 was exactly in that, that wonderful little circular that they just gave us. So we pulled up Title 31. Now, this is a good place for all of you to discern some incredible educational information. In the place I always like to start with, because they're talking about book entry securities and treasury securities. Treasury securities are maintained in one of the following book entry systems. There's 3 systems here: commercial book entry system, the legacy Treasury Direct system, or Treasury Direct. And it gives you a definition of how they're held there. That sure is interesting. The effective date, the definition of adverse claim book entry security, entitlement holder, Federal Reserve Bank, Operation Circular. That's Operation Circular 10, folks. Go ahead and write that in your notes and please go check that out. Funds account, issue, participant, participant securities account, etc., etc. But now we get to the definitions, and I suggest all of you read through these definitions. Bond means an obligation of the United States with a term of more than 10 years, issued under Chapter 31 of Title 31 of the United States Code in book entry form. Well, the biggest bond that I know of that most people have is the biggest investment they'll ever make in their life, and that's a house, right? Typically, you get two styles of notes, either a 15-year contract mortgage or a 30-year. Well, that meets that requirement now, doesn't it? That sure is strange. Bill means an obligation of the United States with a term of not more than 1 year, issued at a discount in book entry form. Well, entitlement holder means a person to whose account and interest in a book entry security is credited on the records of a securities intermediary. The fiscal services is the securities intermediary who's responsible for paying you back what the United States owes you. You see how handy this is, folks? I mean, yeah, there's all kinds of good information here. Incompetent means an individual who is legally, medically, or mentally incapable of handling his or her business affairs, except that a minor is not an incompetent solely because of age. Wow. Note means an obligation of the United States with a term of at least 1 year, but of not more than 10 years, issued under Chapter 31 of Title 31 of the United States Code. When I purchased my car, that note was like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years, right? That falls right into that category now, doesn't it? So interesting. Owner, as used in subpart C, means the individual or individuals or entity, EIN, in whose name a security is registered. If the security is registered in more than one name, the term owner includes all those whose names appear on the registration and are authorized by this part to make a transaction request on the security held in Legacy Treasury Direct. Wow. Redemption means payment of a security at maturity, i.e., the merging of the legal and lawful titles, or pursuant to a call for redemption, because you're calling the bond, folks, in accordance with the terms of security. Securities intermediary means a person that is registered as a clearing agency, and that's how all brokerage firms are listed, as clearing. They're clearing houses under the federal securities law, a Federal Reserve Bank, any other person that provides clearance or settlement services with respect to book entry securities. That's all these people are doing, folks. Security entitlement means the rights and property interest of an entitlement holder with respect to a book entry security. That's all we're doing, folks. That's all we're doing. And I want to point out, because this is just what I've discerned from this, I'm going to include this bond, this coupon, and I'm going to take a yellow highlighter and I'm going to highlight that number. at the bottom of the bond. And typically, as you see here, it'll say available credit, payments made. I'm going to also highlight the payment made because I'm going to want reimbursement for everything, that I've added to the bond. Right?
Okay. So right here for the enclosed amount example.
It tells us to have the supplemental, filing of the information to help them discern it. And to me, that's a very simple way to help them discern it, is to highlight what they need to know.
Wow. Awesome. So this number at the bottom, everybody, since we're recording, just using this as an example, and I can put this in the chat as well, the sample bill so you can look at it. The issue date is not today's date. So let's reiterate. When I was just messing with this PDF, I just put today's date, but it's the date of the actual statement date. Is that correct? We went back here?
Right. So when you look, okay, at the bottom, it'll typically have the first transaction of the statement date, like right there is 12/31.
Mm-hmm.
You scroll down a little bit, there might be another date that you see that's earlier. But I always just pick the first earliest date because that's going to be the start of the statement. That's going to be the issue date for that month of bonds, right? So you see that's the earliest date. Keep going up. You see that's the earliest date is that 12/31 right there.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm. Right here.
Oh, 12/30. Sorry, 12/30. There you go.
Oh,
Below it.
There you go. That's a transaction date, not the post date. Can somebody unmute it? Okay.
But that's the first.
Yes, date.
Issue date of that particular statement of account.
Here, look above. Statement closing date. What is this? You see it?
Yep.
January 29th. Would that be?
And 30 days prior to that would be 12/30. Since they're doing a monthly statement.
Yep. So don't get caught up on the dates. Like, just pay attention to the oldest date on your statement. If you're going to do a credit card, this is just an example for us. And we would use 12/30 as the date on this, as the issue date here. This is for 12/30/2016 because it's an old credit card statement. And the serial number would be all the numbers at the bottom. It's like 35 digits, I believe this is. I just shrunk it because I added this text box in order to put it in there. But you had 30 spaces here. And if you run out of 30 spaces, you can go to this form. Or, like he said in the instructions, if you need more space, attach either FS Form 3500. This is the older one. But on the 1522, it says right here, if you need more space, attach either a list or FS Form 3500. So it could be just a list.
I'll give some clarification on that.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime you send a letter of instruction, letter of advice, anything to any financial institution, since you are the account holder, and this happened to me all the time, I would get a piece of mail at the branch from a client. And in that piece of mail would be a very large check, let's say for $275,000. But they would include a letter of instruction. I'm going to be out on vacation for the next 2 weeks, Kevin. Please deposit this check into these accounts. I want a certain sum into account number 1, a certain sum into account number 2, a certain sum into account number 3. So if you give them a letter of instruction and write out, the rest of your bonds, they have to follow that to a T. It is a mandate of the financial institution because you have to keep the record as the financial institution. So anything that you put in writing, they have to follow it to a T. Just nice little note for y'all. Yeah, I don't recommend doing anything until you fully understand it, because you're going to have to stand on it. What if you get a call from fiscal services and you don't know how to answer? Well, if you have all these CFRs and everything, you've got right in front of it. Well, I'm sorry, sir, but this is an obligation of the United States, and I'm just trying to recoup everything in addition, to the bond that I've paid, because it is a responsibility of the United States per CFR this, per that. And you answer that question, they're going to say, okay, oh, I don't have an incompetent here. I've got somebody who knows their shit. So in our live yesterday, uh, thanks for Ray, trustee Ray TTEE came forward and said that's exactly what he had done. Because there are other fiscal service forms that you can supply to them. The Fiscal Service 231 is an appointment of a fiduciary, right? And what Ray had told to the group on the live call was that, he appointed the head of fiscal services as the fiduciary. So he's the one responsible, and turned in all those bigger documents. Now we have to understand that the Social Security card is the card that contains all the transactions you've ever done by credit. It's called a numinant report. And the Social Security has that numinant report of everything that you've done since you've started signing for the blue card person when you turned 18, right? What else is a bond that has letters and numbers on it? Your driver's license, your marriage license, the contract that you signed with the college when you got your advanced degree. All of these things are contracts that the United States is an obligor of. It's their obligation. Now, what he did when he sent those items in and appointed that guy, they called him back and said, this will take us at least 4 months. So my opinion is this: I'm going to pick some very low hanging fruit that I've already paid and I have record of, that I can send in as bonds to get reimbursed for, so I can survive with my 4 children and wife, my family of 6, so I can survive for the next 6 to 8 to 12 to however many months it's going to take them to do that calculation. Because believe me, it's every transaction that you've ever done using that SOC, and they have the records for it. So they're going to settle those records. And believe me, you're going to see the United States debt start to decline and decline and decline, because that 31 trillion that's hanging out there, or whatever number they're putting in front of the public, to view, that is money not owed to other countries. That is money owed to the people for allowing the corporation to use their good credit. The Legacy Treasury Direct System is a non-interest based book entry system maintained by the Treasury for purchasing and holding marketable Treasury securities, right? A Treasury security is maintained in Legacy, blah, blah, blah. Treasury Direct, or Treasury securities, are held directly there in the investor's name. Okay. The other one says it's a certain sum of numbers, right? So if we just read through this stuff, it's going to tell us what